I died yesterday. And today, I'm late to a job I left 3 years ago. The first thing I register is the hum of my ancient fridge and the persistent citrus of cheap dish soap. The second is the fact that my neck doesn't ache. For 2 years, I woke up folded like a forgotten paper crane. Now my spine sighs, almost grateful. My eyelids feel grainy, like I've slept with my contacts in, except I stopped wearing contacts a lifetime ago. I sit up, and the world tilts into a clean little studio. 1 room, 1 plant, 1 desk with a wobble you could measure in Richter. Everything is wrong in the right way. A younger version of my lamp, the curtains I tossed out when the mold won, the succulent I murdered by neglect still plump and smug on the sill. My phone buzzes on the nightstand. I reach for it with hands that don't tremble. The lock screen blooms. June 3rd. 3 years ago. I squint. Blink. Shake. The date clings like burrs to wool. My chest stutters the way it did yesterday, when a billboard that promised happiness in your hands let go of the roof and reached for me instead. I remember the scream, the white-hot snap, and then nothing. No dark tunnel, no lights. Just off. But here I am. Soft morning light gilding dusty air. My throat crackles with a laugh that isn't funny. Okay. Either I survived and a neurologist is about to make bank, or the mirror above my dresser shows me a face I haven't seen in 3 years. Smoother under the eyes, cheeks that haven't yet learned the word gaunt. My hair is shinier. My mouth looks less like it belongs to someone who swallows thunder for breakfast. I smile at myself like you might test a stranger's name. And then, behind me in the reflection, a man stands in my window. He doesn't belong. He is too crisp for this soft room, a column of dark cloth and amused punctuation. Long coat. Black, although the light breaks on its weave like there are deeper colors stitched into the seams. His hair is the kind of black that tricks you into seeing blue. He wears the expression of someone who has mastered the art of arriving at the moral of the story without telling it. Evelyn, he says, and the glass hums with my name. On time. That's rare. I spin. The window is empty except for city noise and sunlit dust. He's only in the mirror. A chill pencils down my back. Can we not? I say, aiming for dry, landing somewhere near parched. I haven't had coffee. Hallucinations after flattening, fine. But if you're a ghost, please be the helpful kind. He tilts his head in the reflection, considering. Ghosts are so single-purpose. I prefer generous patron. Do generous patrons normally break into women's apartments via IKEA mirrors? That's a West Elm, actually. He steps closer in the mirror, and the air in the room grows cool, as if the AC remembered its job. I'm Lucien. Lucien? I repeat. Of course you are. It tastes expensive. Let me guess, you come with an offer that sounds like a scam and tastes like a miracle. His smile sharpens. A year? I wait. When nothing else arrives, I quirk a brow. A year of what? Magazine subscriptions? Good hair days? Do not toy with me on the hair. A year to alter your trajectory, he says, as if it's obvious. A year to pivot before the cliff. You died yesterday. Now you haven't. Cause and effect can be taught manners. I press my palm to the dresser. My pulse is insistent. I died, I say, hearing how the words settle. I remember the sound, like the sky cracking an egg. Yes, Lucien says. It was almost poetic. You would have hated it. A laugh punches out of me, startled and thin. Understatement of the year. He gestures, no, the suggestion of a gesture, a ripple in the mirror's idea of him. You were betrayed, he says. Spectacularly. Lover, friend, colleague. Then the universe asked you to become a cautionary tale, and a billboard obliged. I'm proposing an edit, a small one. A chance to rehearse the same act with different blocking. I swallow. My mouth tastes like citrus soap. I think of Jin's ring glinting like a false promise. I think of Hana's soft apologies sharpening into knives, I think. Of HR emails with words like misalignment and culture, fit as if I were a pair of jeans they'd grown out of by choice. What's the cost? I ask. Lucien's eyes are very clear. You'll see betrayal before it happens. That's a cost? I bark a laugh, put a bow on it. That's a feature. He nods once, as if satisfied I'd say that. You'll see it in flashes, he continues. An echo in the air, the color pulling out of a room, a sound like glass remembering it can break. You won't know the shape, only the certainty, and you'll never be able to pretend you didn't. I feel it then, a small door in my chest cracking open, hope peeking through with the feral caution of a stray cat. So, preemptive heartbreak, I say, like push notifications. But for treachery, exactly, Lucien says, pleased. You design systems, Evelyn. Consider this an alerting protocol for the human condition. Outside, a bus sighs, brakes squeal, someone yells left, left, and laughs. The smell of coffee drifts in from the street, warm and brassy. I can almost hear the barista calling my name wrong, the cadence of morning people who believe in productivity the way some believe in saints. And the fine print? I ask because I may be newly dead, but I'm not newly naive. You have 12 months. Lucien's voice remains smooth, but something under it is flint. At the end of that time, the line curtails. You keep what you changed, and I take back the sight. You remember it all. Or, he adds, gentle as a blade, we let the original script run. You already know how it ends. My fingers curl on the dresser. In the mirror, my face is very still, like I'm drawing myself with a mechanical pencil and afraid of smudging. I think of the first domino. That presentation, the whisper campaign, Jin's silence where love should have been. I think of the way my life narrowed to a needle eye because I believed what other people told me I was. Why me? I ask, softer. Lucien's expression shifts. Not kind, but curious. I have a fondness for stubborn people who make beautiful things and then apologize for them. Heat climbs my throat. I don't apologize, I lie. Not anymore, he says. Say yes, Evelyn. The room holds its breath. Dust floats like punctuation. Sunlight draws bars on the floor and asks if I'm ready to slip through them. I lift my chin. Humor finds me like an old friend with a terrible sense of timing. If this is a dream, I say, it's at least an interesting one. Consent. He murmurs, delighted. How refreshing. A cold spark jumps from the mirror to my skin, the briefest kiss of winter on a July wrist, and then the world tilts just a degree. Something slots into place behind my eyes. The room brightens, not by light but by edges. Everything has contour, intent. I inhale, and the air tastes like possibility and stale toast. Any onboarding packet? I ask. A FAQ. Do I get a punch card? 10 betrayals spotted, the 11th is free? Lucien's grin is a secret shared. You won't need it. You were born to notice. I grab my bag, old leather, uncracked, and my portfolio, ideas I haven't had to bury yet. My reflection looks back like a CO conspirator who finally learned the plan. At the door, I pause. If I ever say thank you, I warn, know that it will be extremely reluctant. Of course, he says, amused. I wouldn't accept it any other way. I step into the hallway. The building's smell, cleaning fluid, and the ghost of someone's burned toast greets me like a dog I forgot I had. The city is louder than I remember, a brass band of buses and scooters and not yet exhausted hope. On the sidewalk, heat climbs the concrete in visible waves. People move like commas, short pauses in long sentences. A bike bell tings. A kid shrieks with glee. The coffee shop window fogs where someone presses their nose to it. I aim for the door, for caffeine, for the new old version of my day. As I reach for the handle, the air around me thins for a heartbeat. Color leaches a shade. A faint, crystalline chime shivers through the noise. My skin prickles. I freeze. Then the world snaps back, bright and ordinary. The barista is scolding the espresso machine like a toddler. A man behind me mutters about the stock market. No one looks like they're about to stab me with a spreadsheet. I swallow, pulse racing, and push inside. The bell over the door rings, wholesome and real. Second chances don't smell like roses. They smell like roasted beans, warm milk, and the faint ozone of a storm that hasn't decided whether to arrive. Evelyn, the barista calls, already misspelling it in his mouth. 1 vanilla. Not today, I say, surprising both of us with how steady I sound. Today I'll take it black. Lucien's reflection isn't in the pastry case. But I can feel him. The way you can feel thunder before it speaks. I lift the cup, hot against my palms, and blow a breath across the surface. Round 2, I whisper to the coffee, to the city, to the girl in my skin. Let's rewrite. The second morning of your second life is a strange animal. It looks familiar, smells familiar, but it keeps cocking its head at you like it's waiting to see if you'll notice the difference. I notice. The sun angles through my window just the way it used to. Bright, a little too enthusiastic for someone whose job starts at 9. Outside, the city sounds like it's been up for hours. Scooters whining, heels tapping, someone selling something in a language I can't identify. I'm halfway through putting on my jacket when my neighbor's door creaks open. Mr. Lopez, retired teacher, part-time plant hoarder, full-time gossip. In my previous timeline, I avoided him because every conversation spiraled into unsolicited advice about my posture and career trajectory. "Morning, Evelyn," he says now, holding a mug with world's okayest gardener on it. "You're chipper." "Got a date?" "Nope," I say, locking my door. "Just resurrected. Thought I'd make the most of it." He chuckles, not knowing I mean it literally. "Keep it up. The world needs more morning people." I mutter something about strong coffee and head down the stairs before he can segue into a lecture on composting. The coffee shop on the corner still has that same stubborn line out the door. Inside, the air is thick with espresso and cinnamon, a scent that used to mean comfort before my life imploded. Behind the counter, he is there, the barista with the tragically perfect hair and tragically imperfect ability to get my order right. In my past life, we had an ongoing war about the proper temperature for a cappuccino. "Evelyn." He calls as I step up. "Back to the usual?" I lean on the counter. "Do I look like a woman who repeats her mistakes?" He grins. "I don't know. You keep coming here." Touché. Black coffee. No foam, no syrup, no latte art shaped like my dignity. He snorts and gets to work. While I wait, I let my eyes roam over the cafe. It's like walking into a photograph I forgot I owned. Every table, every squeaky chair, every faded poster of beans and farms. And yet my stomach knots with a quiet hum of anxiety, like there's a trapdoor somewhere I haven't found yet. When my coffee's ready, I take it to go. The day feels too sharp to waste sitting still. AuroraTech's lobby smells the same. Glass, steel, and the faint ghost of someone's cologne. My badge still works. The receptionist hasn't yet developed the frosty tolerance she perfected later. She even smiles when I greet her. The elevator doors open to the design floor. Bright open space, low hum of conversation, the click of keys. My desk is exactly where I remember it, corner near the big window, the better to get distracted by the skyline. And there, leaning against the divider, is Minho. In my last life, he was a background character in my office story. Good at his job, sarcastic in the break room, the kind of guy you only remembered when the Wi-Fi broke. Now he studies me like I'm a math problem worth solving. "Morning," he says. I set my bag down. "You're here early." "I'm always here early." I sip my coffee. "Not from what I remember." His eyes narrow a fraction. "New year, new habits?" I shrug. "Something like that." We do the small talk shuffle for a bit, project timelines, which client is likely to implode first, whether the snack cabinet is cursed. Then, mid-sentence, it happens. The air around one of the designers, a guy named Patrick, dims. Not in brightness exactly, but in temperature. The warm overhead lights seem to lose their nerve, and for half a second, the edges of his figure blur like a photo taken in the wrong light. His gaze, aimed at his monitor, hardens in a way I can't quite explain. A faint sound, like a wine glass tapped with a fingernail, skims the air. It's so quick I almost miss it. Then it's gone. The light snaps back, Patrick mutters about fonts, and the world resumes its regularly scheduled programming. I stand there, coffee halfway to my lips, heart trying to break the sound barrier. Lucien hadn't been exaggerating. I can see it. Feel it. A small, irreversible mark on a timeline only I know is coming. Uh-oh, Minho says. I jerk. What? You've got that look. What look? The one you get when you realize your latte's decaf. I manage a laugh, even as adrenaline fizzes in my veins. It's black coffee. Hard to mess that up. Everything can be messed up, he says with the confidence of someone who's debugged until sunrise. The rest of the morning is a dance between pretending I'm fine and resisting the urge to watch Patrick like a wildlife documentary. I bury myself in layouts and color palettes, letting the work pull me into its familiar rhythm. Every now and then, my eyes drift to the window. The city beyond it pulses with possibility. Some good, some not. Somewhere out there, the dominoes that once toppled my life are standing again, waiting for a push. Not this time. By lunch, I've convinced myself of two things. As I shut down my monitor, I catch Minho watching me again. This time, he doesn't look away. What? I ask. He tilts his head. You're different. I force a smirk. New year, new habits. Right, he says slowly. Just try not to scare the interns. The rooftop cafe hasn't changed. Same faded awning flapping against its poles. Same pots of rosemary and mint along the railing. Same metal chairs that leave cross-hatched marks on the backs of your legs if you sit too long. The city hums below like an endless engine, lights flicking on one window at a time as the sun slides behind the high-rises. Hana is already there when I arrive, her hair tucked behind one ear, a pale scarf looped loose around her neck. She waves with the easy warmth of someone who has never, in this timeline, broken my heart. Eve, she calls, standing to hug me. I was starting to think you'd bailed. Me? Never. I settle into the chair opposite her. You'd guilt me into paying for dessert for a month. She laughs, the sound bright enough to cut through the wind. You know me too well. Too well. The words land heavier than they should. In my other life, Hana had been my favorite person, the one I texted at 2 a.m. when inspiration hit, the one who brought soup when I was sick, the one who toasted my engagement with the kind of smile that makes you think everything is safe, until she used my trust as currency and walked away richer for it. But here she is now, offering me the menu like we're just two friends trying to decide between tiramisu and creme brulee. We order coffee and cake. She insists on splitting both desserts because life's too short for singular experiences. The warmth of the cup seeps into my hands, fighting the edge of the rooftop breeze. So, Hana says, leaning in conspiratorially, I've been thinking about my next move. You know how stagnant it's been here. I feel like I'm meant for something bigger. I sip my coffee, nodding. Bigger how? Well, she smiles, eyes bright. I've had a few conversations. There's this project, confidential but huge. If I play it right, I could leapfrog a few rungs on the ladder. Maybe even land in strategy. Imagine it, me steering the ship. It happens in the middle of her sentence. The air shifts. Not a big gesture, just a fractional dimming, like the sun took a breath and forgot to exhale. The city's colors mute. The shadows around Hana deepen in an unnatural way. Her pupils catch the fading light and hold it too long, too still. And somewhere in the quiet, a sound like fragile glass giving up whispers through the space between us. Then, gone. The wind rustles the rosemary. Hana's scarf flutters. She's still smiling, waiting for me to answer. My fingers tighten on my mug. Lucien's voice echoes in my head. You won't know the shape, only the certainty. I want to believe I imagined it. That this rooftop, with its warm pastries and familiar laughter, is immune to whatever rot I've been handed the sight to detect. That Hana, my Hana, could make different choices this time. But I didn't imagine it. I know what I saw. Wow, I say lightly, forcing my voice into something casual. Look at you, plotting world domination over cake. She grins. Someone's got to do it. And I'd make a benevolent dictator. Oh, sure, I tease. Until you start charging us all rent for breathing the same air. She laughs again, oblivious, or maybe just good at hiding. She always was. I break off a piece of the creme brulee's caramel top and let it crack under my fork. The sound is too close to what I just heard in that moment of shadow. We talk about work gossip, weekend plans, the new ramen place near the station. I make myself smile at the right beats, ask the right questions, give her the version of me she remembers. But my mind keeps circling the question like a drain. Can you change someone if you already know the worst of them? Is the act of trying noble? Or just arrogant? Maybe the future isn't a straight line. Maybe it's a tangle, and all I can do is push one knot a little further down the rope. Or maybe it's already tied, and I'm just here to watch the noose tighten. The sun has dropped by the time we stand. The city below is lit in neon and headlights, every street a ribbon of motion. Hana hugs me goodbye, the same warmth, the same familiar perfume, citrus and something sweet. Don't be a stranger, she says. Never, I reply. And this time, it's not a lie. I'm not going to be a stranger to her. I'm going to be the closest thing to a shadow she has. Close enough to see when she reaches for the knife. Close enough to stop her before she swings it. As I walk toward the elevator, the wind pulls at my hair, tugging me back into the city's noise. My coffee buzz is fading, replaced by the steelier edge of resolve. Lucien gave me the sight, but what I do with it, that's mine. And Hana? She's not going to know what hit her. AuroraTech's main conference room always reminded me of an aquarium, glass walls on 3 sides, waterless but just as full of things that could eat you if you weren't careful. The long table gleamed under recessed lighting, and a massive screen at the far end glowed with the opening slide of the morning's pitch, Next-Gen UX Integration Strategies, a title designed to lull investors into thinking this would be a calm swim. It wouldn't be. I slid into my seat near the middle, clutching my notebook more like a life vest than an accessory. Around me, the room hummed with low conversations, the metallic scent of coffee, and the faint anxiety of people about to be evaluated. The side door opened, and he walked in. Liam, SAO. Even in this timeline, the sight of him sent a ripple through the room. Tall, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that looked like it had been tailored with a scalpel, dark hair smoothed back in deliberate precision, he carried himself like he owned the place. Not in the loud way some execs did, but in the quiet certainty of someone who didn't need to prove it. In my last life, he'd been the kind of investor you dreaded in a pitch, cold, strategic, unmoved by charm or desperation. I remembered him sitting at the end of the table, arms folded, letting my rivals undermine me without so much as a raised eyebrow in my defense. But today, he didn't take the far seat. He came around to the side opposite me, greeting a few people with a handshake before settling in with an easy confidence. His gaze swept the table and landed on me. I told myself I imagined the flicker of recognition. The presentation began. The first half was safe, market stats, projections, the kind of graphs that make you feel intelligent for understanding the axis labels. Then my part came. My pitch for a redesign that would push the product toward a more intuitive, human-centered experience. In the other life, this was where things had gone south. Subtle undercutting from a helpful colleague, followed by tepid investor interest. I'd left the room that day with the metallic taste of failure in my mouth. So when a voice interrupted me halfway through my second slide, my spine braced for impact. "Hold on," Liam said, leaning forward. The table fell silent. His eyes were on me. "Can you go back one slide?" I clicked back. The mock-up of my proposed interface filled the screen. "This," he said, gesturing with his pen, "is the first time I've seen someone approach the user path as a narrative, not just a sequence of clicks." I blinked. "That's exactly the point." He nodded, the corners of his mouth lifting. "It works. It's memorable. You should keep that angle in the proposal." It took me a full 2 seconds to process that he was agreeing with me. Publicly, in front of the kind of people who were allergic to risk, unless it came wrapped in someone else's failure. Thank you, I managed, trying not to sound as startled as I felt. The rest of my segment went by in a blur, buoyed by that single unexpected vote of confidence. When the meeting wrapped, people began drifting out toward the hall, voices rising again into casual chatter. I gathered my notes slowly, half hoping Liam would just leave so I could puzzle over his behavior in peace. No such luck. He was suddenly beside me, his reflection doubling in the glass wall. Up close, his suit smelled faintly of cedar and something darker, like ink. "Well done," he said. I turned, my polite professional smile locked in place. "I didn't expect you to comment. That's why it mattered." His gaze was steady, assessing in a way that felt more like cataloging than judging. "Most people in that room play it safe. You didn't." I shifted my weight, uneasy under the directness of it. "Last I checked, that's usually frowned upon." "Not by me." He slipped his hands into his pockets, a relaxed posture that felt calculated. "I think we have a lot in common, Evelyn, and not all of it is good." The words landed like a pebble in a still pond, small, but with ripples I could feel in my chest. I tilted my head. "That's an unusual icebreaker." "It's not ice," he said, one side of his mouth curving. "More like a weather report." My laugh was sharper than I intended. "Should I bring an umbrella?" He held my gaze for a moment, then looked past me toward the skyline beyond the glass. "Better to be the storm." A colleague called his name from the door, and he stepped away with the same easy confidence he'd brought in. I watched him go, my mind spinning through possibilities. In the last timeline, Liam had been an obstacle, at best, a neutral fixture. Now he'd handed me a piece of credibility in front of the whole room, and I couldn't figure out whether it was generosity, strategy, or something more dangerous. As he reached the door, he glanced back over his shoulder. Just a flicker, long enough to register my expression, long enough to file it away. Then, he was gone. I stood there in the echo of that look, the city's light pouring in through the glass, wondering whether I'd just gained an ally, or been marked for a different kind of game entirely. The office feels different after 9 p.m. Gone is the daytime hum of conversations and clattering keyboards. What's left is the low electric buzz of the lights, the faint whir of the HVAC, and the occasional metallic groan of the building settling into itself. I'm the only one on the design floor, bathed in the glow of my monitor. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city is a dark sea pricked with gold and red, each light its own tiny pulse. I should go home. Instead, I open another file. The site has been behaving like a new muscle. One I didn't know I had, but now that I've felt it work, I can't stop flexing it. 2 days ago, I felt the dim chill around a colleague in marketing. Caught him seconds before he tried to redirect my project to his own team. A few well-placed questions in the group chat, and suddenly the handoff wasn't possible anymore. Yesterday, the flicker hit again. This time around a junior designer who was about to send a mock-up with a major flaw to the client. I accidentally intercepted the file, fixed it, and sent it off myself. The praise came to me, not her. Not all betrayals are grand. Some are tiny, petty, as human as breathing. And now I can see them before they're born. A reflection shifts in the glass of the window. Lucien leans there in the pane, as crisp and shadowed as the first time I saw him. He doesn't knock, doesn't announce himself. Just slides into my awareness like he's always been there. "You're adapting quickly," he says, voice warm velvet over cold steel. "I'm using the tool you gave me," I answer without looking up from my screen. "Isn't that the point?" He tilts his head, considering me. "Yes. But tools have a way of shaping the hands that hold them." I glance at him then. "You came here to be cryptic? Or is there a memo?" "Liam Seo," he says, as if that explains everything. My finger's still on the keyboard. "What about him?" Lucien's smile is slow, almost feline. "He's an outlier. Not quite inside your script, not quite outside. The kind of man who can shift the current without anyone noticing the tide has changed. In English? Even those who stand with you today," he says softly, "may stand against you tomorrow, and they might believe they're doing it for your own good. The words slide under my skin like a chill draft. You're saying I can't trust him. I'm saying, Lucien replies, that trust is the currency most easily counterfeited. I look back at the city lights, wondering which one hides the next betrayal. By the time I shut down my computer, the office is even emptier. I step out onto the small balcony just off the lounge, letting the night air cut through the stale warmth of the building. The view is the kind that makes you forget things are on fire somewhere below. Rows of headlights moving like slow constellations, skyscrapers blinking their coded signals into the dark. The sliding door opens behind me. Burning the midnight oil? Minho steps out, holding 2 paper cups. He hands me one. Figured you'd need this. The coffee's still hot. I take a sip. Thanks. He leans against the railing, studying the skyline. You've been lucky lately. I play dumb. Lucky? In meetings, with project assignments, with catching mistakes before they blow up. It's like you've got a sixth sense. I give a small shrug. Maybe I'm just paying attention. He takes a slow sip of his own coffee. Funny thing, most people don't get that kind of streak without either insider info or help. I glance at him, trying to gauge his tone. He's not accusing, not exactly. Just testing the water. Help from who? I ask, keeping my voice light. He meets my eyes, and for the briefest moment, something shifts in his expression. Like he knows a joke I haven't heard yet. Let's just say, he murmurs, "You're not the first person in this building to get an upgrade." The night air suddenly feels sharper. Before I can press, he drains the last of his coffee and pushes off the railing. Don't work too late, Evelyn. The more you win, the more people notice. He disappears back inside, leaving me alone with the hum of the city and the slow, deliberate echo of his words. I stand there a while longer, staring at the lights. Lucien's warning about Liam still clings to me, but now Minho's implication twists alongside it. If he's had his own dealings with Lucien, or something like him, then I'm not just navigating my own second chance. I'm playing on a field where others might have their own rules, their own abilities, their own debts, and maybe the real fine thread in this deal isn't between me and Lucien at all. It's between me and everyone else who's ever bargained with the dark. The closed-door investor presentation was the kind of meeting where the air smelled like money and tension in equal measure. No journalists, no PR fluff. Just the people with enough capital to decide whether AuroraTech would sprint forward or quietly drown. The conference room was colder than usual, the glass walls replaced by heavy sliding panels that sealed in both sound and pressure. I was here because my project had been folded into the pitch. Liam's pitch, technically. My slides would slot neatly between his, the innovation highlight sandwiched between revenue forecasts and risk mitigation strategies. He stood at the front, every movement measured. The kind of control that came from knowing you could command a room without raising your voice. And then it happened. One blink, too long, too heavy, and the air thinned around him. The temperature in the room dropped by a fraction, but enough for my skin to react. The light on his face dulled, as though someone had turned down the saturation. And deep in that stillness, the crystalline chime rang. Sharp, brittle, inevitable. Betrayal. Not from Hana, not from some office rival. From Liam. I gripped the edge of my chair, fighting to keep my expression neutral as the moment passed, and the color flowed back into the world. He kept talking, gesturing toward a chart, unaware, or maybe perfectly aware, that I'd just seen him marked. My mind spun through possibilities. Was this about profit? Positioning himself ahead of me? Or, worse, was it a calculated move to protect something else? Something I didn't yet see? Lucien's voice replayed in my head. Even those who stand with you today may stand against you tomorrow. I'd thought it was just his usual brand of pessimism. Now, it felt like prophecy. When my turn came, I delivered my section flawlessly, if only because I'd been running on autopilot. My mouth moved, my slides advanced, the investors nodded. But part of me kept glancing sideways at Liam, searching for some tell in his expression, some clue to what I'd just witnessed. There was nothing. Just that same calm composure, like he'd already filed the entire meeting underhandled. By the time we wrapped, my head felt like it had been packed with static. People filed out in small groups, murmuring about next steps. I stayed behind a moment to pack my laptop, but Liam was already gone. In the elevator down to the parking level, I caught sight of Hana slipping through the lobby toward the street. She hadn't been in the meeting, but she moved with a purpose I recognized. Quick, deliberate, like she was chasing something before it could get away. The doors slid shut before I could call her name. I found her again in the garage, by accident. She was leaning against a silver sedan, talking to someone I didn't recognize. They were far enough away that their voices blurred into indistinct rhythm, but the tone was unmistakable, low, conspiratorial. And then, there it was. The dimming, the cold, the subtle leaching of color from her face as the air grew heavy. The chime sounded sharper this time, almost impatient. Her betrayal was closer now. In the rooftop cafe, I'd seen it as something far off, a shadow in the distance. Now it was at my heels, reaching. Whatever she was planning, the timeline had shifted forward, and I didn't know why. The man she was speaking to handed her a folder. She tucked it into her bag without looking inside. A casual observer might have seen nothing unusual, but I wasn't casual anymore. I stepped back before she could see me and caught the next elevator down to the ground floor, pulse hammering. Outside, the late afternoon sun had begun its slide toward evening. I stood on the curb, the warm air doing nothing to thaw the ice that had settled in my chest. I was losing control. When I'd first woken up in this second chance, I'd thought the knowledge alone would be enough, that seeing the shadows would give me time to prepare, to steer the narrative. But the shadows were moving faster now, their timing changing. Hana wasn't supposed to turn this soon. Liam wasn't supposed to turn at all, at least not in my head. Every adjustment I'd made must have set something else in motion. I was no longer walking through a familiar script. I was improvising in a play where everyone else had their own secret lines. I made it to my car and sat there with the door still open, letting the hum of the garage settle into my bones. Hana's betrayal was closer. Liam's was coming from a direction I couldn't read. And me? I was in the middle, holding on to a gift that felt less like a lifeline and more like a fuse. I didn't see Lucien in the rearview mirror that night, but I could almost hear him smiling. Liam's loft was the last thing I expected. I'd imagined something sleek and intimidating, glass tables no one could put a cup on without a coaster, art pieces that looked like they came with NDAs. Instead, it was warm wood, low light, and shelves crowded with books that had actually been read. A leather armchair sagged in the middle from use, and there was a throw blanket over the back of the couch that looked soft. "This is not the aesthetic I pictured," I said as I stepped inside. "You have plants. Alive ones." Liam locked the door behind me. "I like to be underestimated. I think you're safe there," I muttered. He gave me a look that might have been amusement, or warning, and crossed to the kitchen. A moment later, he set 2 glasses of water on the coffee table and sat opposite me. "You saw it," he said without preamble. I didn't bother pretending. The betrayal. In the meeting, he leaned forward, forearms on his knees. "It wasn't for you. It was for them. Define them. There's a faction inside AuroraTech, people who want to hollow it out, sell off the assets and walk away with the pieces. I've been building a case against them for months. The only way in was to make them think I'd turn on you." I folded my arms. "So you decided to fake betray me. Without telling me. Naturally. It had to look real," he said. "They watch everything. If they saw us working together too closely, they'd never let me near the inner circle." I searched his face, looking for any crack in the explanation, but his gaze was steady, and my sight didn't stir. No flicker, no dimming, no chime. "Why tell me now?" I asked. "Because we don't have much time left," he said. "And because you can see what's coming. That makes you valuable." Before I could reply, a knock rattled the door. Liam stood, glanced at the peephole, and opened it. Minho stepped inside, hands shoved in his pockets, expression unreadable. "Wow," he said, looking around. So, the great Liam SEO lives in a Pinterest board. You're late, Liam replied, closing the door. Fashionably, Minho said. Then turned to me. We should talk. I narrowed my eyes. About. He dropped onto the couch. Lucien. My stomach tightened. What about him? I've dealt with him before, Minho said. Years ago. He offered me a deal, information I needed, in exchange for something I didn't think I'd miss. He laughed without humor. Turns out, you always miss it. What was it? I asked quietly. My nerve, Minho said, literally, the ability to take certain risks. After that, I second-guessed everything. Lost opportunities. Watched people I cared about walk into disasters because I couldn't step forward. Eventually, I figured out how to work around it, but I promised myself I'd never let anyone else take his deals without knowing the cost. You think I don't know the cost? I said. I think you don't know the other costs, Minho replied. The ones that only show up when you think you're winning. Liam settled into the armchair, watching us both. You're here because we need each other. Evelyn, you can identify the players before they move. Minho, you can read the system from the inside. I can get us into the room. What room? I asked. He leaned forward. There's a meeting tonight, off the books. The people pushing for the corporate takeover will all be there, mapping out their final moves. If we can identify every single one of them, I can take the list to the board before they make their play. Minho gave me a sideways look. Guess who's going to be the world's most awkward plus-zone? The room turned out to be a darkened office on the 31st floor, the kind of space usually reserved for off-site negotiations and the occasional champagne celebration. Tonight, it was lit only by a long table lamp and the cold glow of laptop screens. Liam's presence earned him quiet nods from the men and women already gathered. No one looked at me twice, apparently. I was background noise. I scanned the faces as the discussion began. Terms, percentages, department names tossed around like poker chips. And then, the first flicker. A man in a navy suit, dim, cold, the chime in my ears like a glass shard. Then a woman with perfect red nails, same flicker. One by one I felt the shadows pass over them, some faint, some strong enough to raise goosebumps along my arms. By the time Liam wrapped the meeting with a smooth promise of alignment, I'd marked every single one in my mind. We reconvened in the hallway outside the service elevator. There are 9, I told them. 4 on the executive side, 5 from external partners. All of them are ready to move. Liam nodded. That's the map we didn't have. Minho gave me a faint grin. Guess you really are the early warning system. For a moment, standing there with them, I felt something dangerously close to trust. 3 people with different debts, different secrets, pooling them for a single goal. But trust, as Lucien had reminded me, was the easiest currency to counterfeit. Liam pressed the elevator button. We move fast. Before the week is out, as the doors opened, Minho leaned toward me and murmured, "Just remember, every map leaves things off." I stepped inside, the city lights flickering beyond the glass. Then I guess we'll have to redraw it as we go. The main hall of AuroraTech had never been this quiet. Rows of investors, executives, and board members sat in rigid attention. The low murmur of presentation chatter cut short when Liam stepped onto the stage. I stood just off to the side, the clicker for the slides warm in my hand. From here, I could see everyone. And, more importantly, I could feel them. The first flicker came from a vice president in the second row. Cold. Dim. The glass chime whisper in my ears. My pulse stayed steady. We had their names already, but confirmation never hurt. Liam's voice carried, smooth and commanding, as he laid out the numbers, the projections, the strategic partnerships that were actually traps for the would-be conspirators. Each chart, each piece of data was a blade wrapped in silk, pointed, precise, undeniable. When it was my turn, I stepped into the lights and clicked to the next slide. User data, product design improvements, and the projected revenue spike from a feature the conspirators had been quietly trying to bury. Faces tightened in the audience. I saw two of them glance at each other, and in that moment they realized they'd been exposed. By the time we wrapped, the board chair was already whispering to the head of legal. Liam didn't smile, but I could feel the satisfaction radiating off him like heat from a lamp. It was done. In the corridor afterward, people congratulated us, some with genuine enthusiasm, some with the brittle cheer of survivors pretending they weren't almost casualties. Minho sidled up, grinning. "You realize you're now officially the golden child, right?" I shook my head. Golden child, maybe. Saint, never. "Well, either way," he said, "I expect my eternal supply of coffee. I take beans, grounds, pods, whatever. I'm flexible." I laughed. "I'll put it in the budget." When the crowd thinned, I found myself alone in one of the side hallways. Or at least, I thought I was. Lucien's reflection appeared in the glass wall beside me, as crisp as if he were standing in the flesh. "You've done well," he said. "You sound surprised." "Not surprised." "Pleased." His eyes caught the light like cut obsidian. "The bargain is complete." I knew before he said it. "You're taking it back." He nodded once. "The site was never meant to be permanent. I could still use it." "You could," he agreed. "But you don't need it anymore." I wanted to argue, but deep down, I knew he was right. I'd been using the gift like a crutch, but the real victories had come from choosing what to do after I saw the shadow, not just spotting it. His tone softened, barely. "To trust, sometimes one must not know the future." The words landed heavier than I expected. I thought of Hana, still a friend, for now. Of Liam, whose so-called betrayal had been part of saving me. Of Minho, who'd once lost his own bargain. "I'll remember," I said quietly. Lucien's mouth curved. "I know." And then he was gone, his absence leaving only my own reflection. Outside, the city had just shaken off a brief summer storm. The pavement shimmered under neon signs, each light rippling in the puddles. I stood on the curb, the air damp and warm against my skin. Liam joined me, his jacket slung over one arm. "We did it," he said. "We did," I agreed. "No more secrets?" he asked, one eyebrow raised. I smiled faintly. "No more secrets." We walked together down the block, our steps splashing through shallow puddles. The street smelled of rain, electricity, and street food from a cart on the corner. Somewhere behind us, a taxi horn blared. Somewhere ahead, laughter spilled from a bar doorway. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't thinking about what might go wrong. I wasn't scanning for flickers, waiting for the next chime of betrayal. I was just here. Minho's voice called after us. "Hey, about that coffee deal." I turned, walking backward as Liam chuckled beside me. "Fine. Lifetime supply. But you're grinding it yourself." "That's fair," Minho said, already pulling out his phone like he was adding it to some sacred list. We kept walking. Liam's hand brushed mine, not claiming, just present. I let it stay. For the first time since the day I woke up in this second chance, I didn't feel like I was rewriting a script. I felt like I was finally off the page, living in the margin, where the real story happened. Here, now. And for now, that was enough.